Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Jai Maharaj. Welcome everyone to Sri Caitanya Caritamrta class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. Today is June 8th, 2023. And tonight we are reading in Adi Lila. I think I haven't changed it yet. We're in 6th chapter.
6th chapter, text 14 and 15.
Yes. And as always, Maharaj welcomes your comments and questions. We ask that you just use the raise hand feature or simply unmute yourself and speak when Maharaj asks for questions, or you can type your comments into the chat window. Just remember to not send any chat messages as Maharaj is reading something there. It makes it more difficult to read. And at the end of class, we'll post the links that you can share with your friends so that they can attend as well. And if anyone wants to lead the closing kirtan, please send me a message in the chat. Maharaj, we are very glad that you could join us. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna. And welcome to the foggy end times here in the northeast of America. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmiditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam. Vande Hang Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitamstam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lulita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Horipriye Vanchako Patarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We're reading about the glories of Advaita Charja, and the subject matter is the argument, essentially, that matter on its own can be responsible for everything. That is to say, there's an atheistic Sankhya philosophy which resembles that of Lord Kapil Dev in many respects, but finally is impersonal and doesn't accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the ultimate cause of all causes. It assumes that matter can work on its own. So we've read about this extensively in the previous class, last Thursday, and we essentially heard the arguments laid out. And my Kindle went missing, so I don't have my exact place, but I think we're close enough. We'll begin with Baladev Vijayabhushan's answering. We might be perhaps a paragraph early that way, but no harm hearing again. Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan, in his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, has tried to nullify this conclusion that we just mentioned, because he thinks that discrediting these so-called causes of the cosmic manifestation will nullify the entire Sankhya philosophy. Materialistic philosophers accept matter to be the material and efficient causes of creation. And that is the immediate and remote causes. For them, matter is the cause of every type of manifestation. Generally, they give the example of a water pot and clay. Clay is the cause of the water pot, but the clay can be found as both cause and effect. Water pot is the effect, and clay itself is the cause, but clay is visible everywhere. A tree is matter, but a tree produces fruit. Water is matter, but water flows. In this way, say the Sankhites, matter is the cause of movements and production. As such, matter can be considered the material and efficient cause of everything in the cosmic manifestation. Srila Baladev Vijayabhushan has therefore enunciated the nature of pradhan as follows. Pradhan is the primordial state of material nature. Material nature is inert, and as such, it cannot be the cause of matter, neither as the material nor as the efficient cause. Seeing the wonderful arrangement and management of the cosmic manifestation generally suggests that a living brain is behind this arrangement. For without a living brain, such an arrangement could not exist. One should not imagine that such an arrangement can exist without conscious direction. In our practical experience, we never see that inert bricks can themselves construct a big building. The example of the water pot cannot be accepted because a water pot has no perception of pleasure and distress. Such perception is within. Therefore, the covering body or the water pot cannot be synchronized with it. Again, this is a classic argument against materialistic reductionism, that it leaves out conscious experience. And Akandati Prabhu in his Atma paradigm has addressed that point at length. Sometimes the material scientist suggests that trees grow from the earth automatically, without assistance from a gardener, because that's a tendency of matter. They also consider the intuition of living creatures from birth to be material. And such material tendencies as bodily intuition cannot be accepted as independent, for they suggest the existence of a spirit soul within the body. Actually, neither the tree nor any other body of a living creature has any tendency or intuition. The tendency and intuition exist because the soul is present within the body. In this connection, the example of a car and driver may be given very profitably. The car has a tendency to turn right and left, but one cannot say that the car itself, as matter, turns right and left without the direction of the driver. A material car has neither tendencies nor intuitions, independent of the intentions of the driver within the car. The same principle applies for the automatic growth of trees in the forest. The growth takes place because of the soul's presence within the tree. So this is the start of Baladev's answer, that these so-called tendencies in matter don't take us anywhere. Matter never tends to do anything unless it's in touch with consciousness. And the example is there of the car and the driver. The car doesn't have an innate tendency to turn right or left. It's only when the driver is present. Sometimes foolish people take it for granted that because scorpions are born from heaps of rice, the rice has produced the scorpions. The real fact, however, this we dealt with last week as being the theory of spontaneous generation. And I mentioned that one Soviet scientist, Operin, wrote a book in which he began by just a fairly thorough history of various theories of spontaneous generation. Ducks come from trees, and all sorts of strange notions. So he runs through them and poo-poos them. And yet he then turns around and presents his own sophisticated theory in which essentially the same thing happens. Consciousness is spontaneously generated from matter. So here, that theory of spontaneous generation is rejected, even if we see scorpions born from heaps of rice. We know that it's not that heaps of rice lying in the sun under proper condition will give birth to scorpions. We need the real fact is that the mother scorpion lays eggs within the rice. And by the proper fermentation of the rice, the eggs give birth to several baby scorpions, which in due course come out. This does not mean that the rice gives birth to the scorpions. Similarly, sometimes bugs are seen to come from dirty beds. This does not mean, however, that the beds give birth to the bugs. It is the living soul that comes forth, taking advantage of the dirty condition of the bed. There are different kinds of living creatures. Some of them come from embryos, some from eggs, and some from the fermentation of perspiration. Different living creatures have different sources of appearance. But one should not conclude that matter produces such living creatures. The example cited by materialists that trees automatically come from the earth follows the same principle. Taking advantage of a certain condition, a living entity comes from the earth. According to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, every living being is forced by divine superintendence to take a certain type of body according to his past deeds. There are many varieties of bodies, and because of the divine arrangement, a living entity takes bodies of different shapes. Now there's a comment from Panchatattva. I'm thinking about the tendency of science fiction and horror story writers to create stories about zombies or reanimated dead people. It's always a horror story, always leading to tragedy. The very idea of life coming from matter generates shock and terror. But modern science plods along, holding on to such ideas. Yes. We have the Frankenstein monster where life is somehow imbued into the creature, some process. Yeah. When a person thinks, I am doing this, the I am does not refer to the body. It refers to something more than the body or within the body. As such, so that will, I want to do this, I shall do this, I am doing this, comes from consciousness. As such, the body as it is has neither tendencies nor intuition. The tendencies and intuition belong to the soul within the body. Material scientists sometimes suggest that the tendencies of male and female bodies cause their union, and that this is the cause of the birth of the child. But since the Purusha, according to Sankhya philosophy, is always unaffected, where does the tendency to give birth come from? Aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kamohetukam in the Bhagavad Gita. This is described as a demonic theory, to think that simply by attraction of different elements, male and female, or what have you, we have everything. So that's rejected here. And just looking, since the Purusha, according to Sankhya philosophy, is always unaffected, where does the tendency to give birth come from? I must refer back to earlier in the purport, but I think I've missed it out. My apologies for that. If someone has some insight into that or remembers the reference, please feel free to bring it up. Sometimes material scientists give the example that milk turns into curd automatically, and that distilled water pouring from the clouds falls down to earth, produces different kinds of trees, and enters different kinds of flowers and fruits with different fragrances and tastes. Therefore, they say, matter produces varieties of material things on its own. In reply to this argument, the same proposition of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that different kinds of living creatures are put into different kinds of bodies by the management of a superior power, is repeated. Under superior superintendence, various souls, according to their past activities, are given the chance to take a particular type of body, such as that of a tree, animal, bird, or beast, and thus their different tendencies develop under these circumstances. So we see that the reductionistic approach to reality has been with us for a long, long time. Way back in before the days of Baladev Vidyabhushan, and even back in the time when the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, these materialistic philosophers were there with their ideas and their arguments, essentially not that different from modern arguments, that matter on its own is so capable that it can produce life. But from the Shastra, we understand that life directs, consciousness directs matter, and matter on its own doesn't do anything. Yes, Panchatattva Prabhu.
Guru Maharaj, I believe I found the reference earlier in the purport. It's in the paragraph beginning. The two kinds of senses are the 10 external senses.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 2/3 of the way down. Well, there's several mentions of the Purusha there, but it says the Purusha, the enjoyer, is inactive and without material qualities, although at the same time he's the master, existing separately in each and every body as the emblem of knowledge. By understanding the material cause, one can guess that the Purusha, the enjoyer, being without activity, is aloof from all kinds of enjoyment or superintendence. And it goes on to explain that the Prakriti and Purusha, Sankhya philosophy asserts that the creation is only a product of the unification of Prakriti and Purusha, or proximity to one another.
Proximity to one another.
concludes the paragraph saying, when the Purusha is illusioned for want of sufficient knowledge, he feels himself to be the enjoyer. And when he is in full knowledge, he is liberated. In the Sankhya philosophy, the Purusha is described to be always indifferent to the activities of Prakriti.
Mm-hmm. So if he's indifferent, how is he not getting things started here? That seems to be the argument. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see where that was now. We've gone so far that I'm a little lost with the where Purusha and Prakriti are. Let's see. Well, there it is. Tendency of male and female bodies cause their union, and that's the cause of the birth of the child. But since the Purusha is always unaffected, they say, where does the tendency to give birth come from? Yeah. So essentially, we have that same question, that how does intention come from matter? Okay. This all gets quite complex. I remember I edited one purport. I've mentioned this before, in which Prabhupada in Caritamrta, I believe, quotes a passage from Madhusudan Saraswati, a big Mayavadi Acharya, and then comments upon it. And I wrote to Srila Prabhupada, and I said I wasn't sure whether I'd edited that passage from Madhusudan Saraswati correctly, because it didn't seem to make sense. And Prabhupada wrote back and said, yes, it doesn't make sense. You've edited it correctly. Bhagavad Gita also affirms, Purusha Prakriti sto hi punkte prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangasya sadasad yoni janmashu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. The soul is given different types of bodies. For example, were souls not given varieties of tree bodies, the different varieties of fruits and flowers could not be produced. Each class of tree produces a particular kind of fruit and flower. It is not that there is no distinction between the different classes. An individual tree does not produce flowers of different colors or fruits of different tastes, or fruits of different tastes. There are demarcated classes, as we find them among humans, animals, birds, and other species. There are innumerable living entities, and their activities performed in the material world according to the different qualities of the material modes of nature give them the chance to have different kinds of lives. So this is our familiar understanding. Thus, one should understand that pradhan, matter, cannot act unless impelled by a living creature. The materialistic theory that matter independently acts cannot therefore be accepted. Matter is called prakriti, which refers to female energy. A woman is prakriti, a female. A female cannot produce a child without the association of a purusha, a man. Purusha causes the birth of a child because the man injects the soul, which is sheltered in the semen, into the womb of the woman. The woman, as the material cause, supplies the body of the soul, and as the efficient cause, she gives birth to the child. But although the woman appears to be the material and efficient cause of the birth of a child, originally the purusha, the male, is the cause of the child. Similarly, this material world gives rise to varieties of manifestations due to the entrance of Garbhodakshay Vishnu within the universe. He is present not only within the universe, but within the bodies of all living creatures, as well as within the atom. We understand from the Brahma Samhita that the super soul is present within the universe, within the atom, and within the heart of every living creature. Therefore, the theory that matter is the cause of the entire cosmic manifestation cannot be accepted by any man with sufficient knowledge of matter and spirit. Yes, Tulsi Priya.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was just wondering, when we think about all the different varieties of living entities in the material world, my understanding is, is being alluded to and stated directly also, is that these forms exist because the living entity wants to enjoy in a certain way.
Yes.
But when we hear that the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, then, and we know that there are some animal forms in the spiritual world, I wonder, are all the animal forms or all the different types of species present in the spiritual world? And is that an indication that there are different ways that these forms serve Krishna via their bodily forms? Or do this multiplicity of forms exist only in the material world because of the desire to enjoy?
Well, there's certainly a multiplicity of forms in the spiritual world. And Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we even hear that sometimes devotees take different forms to please the Lord. So there's certainly multiplicity. There's peacocks, there's birds, there's cows, there's human beings. There's all sorts of living trees, living beings. Now, whether all 8,400,000 are to be found there, that's another question. I don't know about mosquitoes in the spiritual world. I have my doubts.
One time I asked my husband, I said, we were sort of just joking and speculating, and I said, if mosquitoes exist in the material world because mosquitoes inject you with something, and I said, what do they inject you with? He said, prema.
Yes. Materialists sometimes give the argument that a straw eaten by a cow produces milk automatically. So material nature, under different circumstances, produces varieties of manifestations. Thus, originally matter is the cause. Matter is the cause. Refuting this argument, we may say that an animal of the same species as the cow, namely the bull, also eats straw like the cow, but does not produce milk. Under the circumstances, it cannot be said that straw in connection with a particular species produces milk. Conclusion should be that there's superior management, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. The Supreme Lord says, Mayadhyakshena, under my superintendence. When he desires that the cow produce milk by eating straw, there's milk. And when he does not so desire it, the mixture of such straw cannot produce milk. If the way of material nature had been that straw produced milk, a stack of straw could also produce milk. That's not possible. And the same straw given to a human female also cannot produce milk. That is the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita's statement that only under superior orders does anything take place. Matter itself has no power to produce independently. The conclusion, therefore, is that matter, which has no self-knowledge, cannot be the cause of the material creation. The ultimate creator is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If matter were accepted as the original cause of creation, all the scriptures, all the authorized scriptures in the world would be useless, for in every scripture, especially the Vedic scriptures, like the Manusmriti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is said to be the ultimate creator. The Manusmriti is considered the highest Vedic direction to humanity. Manu is the giver of law to mankind. And in the Manusmriti, it is clearly stated that before the creation, the entire universal space was darkness, without information, and without variety, and was in a state of complete suspension, like a dream. Everything was darkness. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then entered the universal space, and although he is invisible, he created the visible cosmic manifestation. In the material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not manifested by his personal presence, but the presence of the cosmic manifestation in different varieties is the proof that everything has been created under his direction. He entered the universe with all creative potencies, and thus he removed the darkness of the unlimited space. The form, oh yes, Mukesh.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, the question was like in the spiritual world, the living entities, they are always in a mood of service to the Lord. So my question was like, is this original form of living entity there? Is it fixed or is it dynamic? Like it's like, is it according to the desire of the Lord and living entity, where the living entity wants to serve Lord in a particular way, and like he is given a different form over there? Like, is it dynamic or is it fixed? Like, I had this curiosity.
Is it dynamic? By dynamic, you mean?
Like, for example, like a devotee, he is in a Sakya Rasa, and he wants to serve Lord as a
Yes,
friend.
generally it's taken that there's a particular relationship inherent in the living being. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Prabhumai Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Kureyudvai. By particular process, that dormant relationship is revived. This is what we hear from Chaitanya Charitamrta, from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, from Srila Prabhupada. I understand, I was just hearing from Dhanurdhar Maharaj that there's one sannyasi who has been very active in preaching that a particular relationship with Krishna is, what's the word? Is not inherent, but is brought about by some particular process. And the one other devotee, forgotten his name, Simon Haas, I've forgotten his spiritual name, writing his doctoral thesis at Oxford, has really smashed that. So much so that the guru of that sannyasi switched sides and took the opposite view from his disciple, much to the disciples' distress. Of course, that's secondhand information, but so I hear. In any case, regardless of who accepts it or who doesn't accept it, this is what we heard from Srila Prabhupada many times. Sadhu Seva said, okay, now, Tulsi Priya says, does Mukesh Prabhu mean that the jiva can change forms even if the rasa remains fixed and inherent? I don't know if that's what Mukesh means. He's here to tell us. But it is said in Brihad Bhagavatamrita that the living entity, for the pleasure of Krishna, can do that. He can take on any particular form that will please Krishna at any particular time. That sort of cover the territory on that question, Mukesh.
Maharaj, I was just curious, knowing the dynamics where Krishna, sometimes he likes to be defeated by his devotees, in the games in a Sakyaras, and sometimes he feels that he should win. So sometimes he feels that he should win. So knowing his will, everyone are in a mood to lose. And not in a sense where they do it intentionally.
It doesn't have to be that they're in a mood to lose. They can be in a mood to win and still be defeated. That's not difficult for Krishna.
Yeah, that's so. Who sanctions this particular seva?
Yogamaya, the internal energy of the Lord, arranges these things. The internal energy arranges different devotees to take, even Krishna. Well, devotees, for example, will feel afraid even though Krishna is there. So there's no cause of fear, but by the arrangement of Yogamaya, they're feeling fearful. Or Krishna himself is wondering, where's Radharani? Where's Radharani? Why is she late? He knows everything. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What's the difficulty for him to know? But if he knows everything, then the pastime is spoiled. So Yogamaya arranges for Krishna to be in anxiety like that. Svabhavaki Jnana Balapriyacha. These energies are acting according to Krishna's desire, but he doesn't have to specifically direct them. Now you do this, now you do that. They know what he wants and they do it. Is that okay? Murari has a question. Is it a correct understanding that every plant and piece of vegetation across the whole planet was once a human being and acted in a way that resulted in birth among plant species? And we were once everything, more than once. You have unlimited time, anadikal, unlimited time. So since time immemorial, we've been kicking around the material cosmic manifestation in different species. Sometimes a demigod, sometimes a plant, sometimes a human being, sometimes down to a plant again, sometimes up to Indra again. As the expression goes, been there, done that. So we've been everywhere and done everything. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada used to say, now just this one lifetime, use it for Krishna. You've already done everything else in so many lifetimes. Now this lifetime, why not dedicate this life for becoming Krishna conscious, going back to Godhead. We read a little more. Form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described to be transcendental, very subtle, eternal, all-pervading, inconceivable, and therefore non-manifested to the material senses of a conditioned living creature. He desired to expand himself into many living entities. And with such a desire, he first created a vast expanse of water within the universal space, and then impregnated that water with living entities. By that process of impregnation, a massive body appeared, blazing like 1,000 suns. And in that body was the first creative principle, Brahma. The great Parashara Rishi has confirmed this in the Vishnu Puran. He says that the cosmic manifestation visible to us is produced from Lord Vishnu and sustained under his protection. He is the principal maintainer and destroyer of the universal form. This cosmic manifestation is one of the diverse energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a spider secretes saliva and weaves a web by its own movements, but at the end winds up the web within its body, so Lord Vishnu produces this cosmic manifestation from his transcendental body, and at the end winds it up within himself. All the great sages of the Vedic understanding have accepted that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original creator. It is sometimes claimed that the impersonal speculations of great philosophers are meant for the advancement of knowledge without religious ritualistic principles. But the religious ritualistic principles are actually meant for the advancement of spiritual knowledge. By performance of religious rituals, one ultimately reaches the supreme goal of knowledge by understanding that Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of everything. It is clearly stated in the Bhagavad Gita that even those who are advocates of knowledge alone, without any religious ritualistic processes advance in knowledge after many, many lifetimes of speculation, and thus come to the conclusion that Vasudeva is the supreme cause of everything that be. As a result of this achievement of the goal of life, such an advanced learned scholar or philosopher surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Religious ritualistic performances are actually meant to cleanse the contaminated mind in the material world. And the special feature of this age of Kali is that one can easily execute the process of cleansing the mind of contamination by chanting the holy names of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So let's do that. Sadhu Seva is there. I think he's volunteered to lead the kirtan.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Om Vishnupad, Paramhansa Pariprajaka Ashto Tarasata Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamana Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Sadhu Seva. Lovely kirtan.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Panchatattva Prabhu. Thank you, Haridas Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Please share those class links with your friends, and also visit Maharaj's website if you'd like to support his preaching and his service to us via these Zoom classes, and also ISKCON of New Jersey's website. We look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. Shri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai.
All right.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Breathe free, Maharaj.
Thank you very much. Happy breathing.